Thanks for tuning in to Murder News, the true crime cult with the latest breaking news, murdery memes, TV reviews, podcast recommendations, and all things spooky. It's almost spring at the MMN Goat Farm, which means it's the best time of the year to dress up our goats in some PJs, crack the Zodiac case, and get working on our flower crowns. I'm television's Aurora Katie.
And I'm your online murder friend, Angelina. Cults are no fun alone, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell all of your true crime friends to join the commune at patreon.com/murdernews. This is the Week in True Crime. In early 2013, 21-year-old Kelsie Schelling found out she was pregnant. After her first checkup confirmed that everything was okay, she texted a picture of her 8-week ultrasound to her boyfriend, Dante Lucas, also 21 at the time. He didn't seem happy about the pregnancy, and they argued. At his request, Kelsie made the 2-hour drive from her home in Denver to meet Dante in Pueblo. They agreed to meet at the Southside Walmart, where Kelsie arrived around 11 p.m. on February 4th, and she was never seen again after their meeting. Dante Lucas was living with his grandmother at the time on Manor Ridge Drive. His mother, Sarah Lucas, reportedly passed by the house on the morning of February 5th and was surprised to see Kelsie's car in the driveway. CCTV footage captured Dante in Kelsie's black Chevy Cruze at a drive-through ATM, where he withdrew $400 from her bank account. Surveillance cameras captured images of Dante parking Kelsie's dirty car at the Walmart parking lot around noon that day. A number of texts went out from Kelsie's phone in the days following her disappearance to her friends and family in Denver, to her employer, and to Dante's phone, telling everyone that she had miscarried. Authorities pinged both Kelsie's and Dante's phones several times during this period, and they always pinged the same tower, leaving police to believe the phones were always together. On February 7th, Kelsie's car was parked at St. Mary Corwin Hospital in Pueblo, freshly washed. On February 9th, Kelsie's mother, Laura Saxton, reached out to Dante to ask if he had seen her. He responded that he last saw her on February 7th when she left after an argument. On February 9th, Kelsie Schelling was reported missing. This very quickly appeared to be a case of the boyfriend did it, but Kelsie's body was never found, and there was too little evidence to immediately seek a warrant for Lucas. He was arrested on February 15, 2013, on 3 counts of identity theft and theft under $500, but he was later released. Kelsie's family has fought tirelessly to find her and to find answers. They started a Facebook page for her, offered a hefty reward, and hired a private investigator. But things got pretty quiet until November 2017, when Dante Lucas was arrested on unrelated robbery and assault charges. His brother Dushan and mother Sarah were also implicated in the robbery, and all 3 were sentenced to serve time in prison. Lucas was still in prison that December when he was served with an arrest warrant for the first-degree murder of Kelsie Schelling. Judge Thomas Flesher ruled that there were no digital footprints to indicate that Kelsie was still alive. The trial was initially set to begin in April 2019, but due to a number of incredible twists and turns, it was ultimately delayed until early 2021. Opening statements were taken on February 3rd, just 1 day shy of the 8-year anniversary of Kelsie's disappearance. Lucas pleaded innocent, but was found guilty by a Pueblo County jury this past Monday, March 8th. Kelsie's family, of course, found some closure in the arrest and eventual conviction of Dante Lucas, but it's not enough, as Kelsie's body remains undiscovered. Her mother, Laura Saxton, explained to Fox 21 News, "I need to bring her home in order to have any peace in my heart." The reward for information leading to the discovery of Kelsie Schelling's remains is currently set at $100,000. We'll put some links down below to show you how to reach out if you have any information to share. My sources for this week will also be in the details below. And please check out today's episode of our podcast, Murder News, the Listen Edition, because this case just has way too many details to share with you in one short video. Remember when I vaguely alluded to several twists and turns? If you think I yada yada'd over the best part, tune into the podcast.
The remains of 45-year-old Mary Stella Gomez-Mullet were found Friday evening after she'd been missing since February 18th from Boynton Beach, Florida. Mary was from Colombia and had recently married 66-year-old Roberto Colon in what he described as a quid pro quo arrangement in which Mary would receive her U.S. citizenship in exchange for taking care of his mother, who had dementia. It appears that their agreement quickly went south as Roberto accused her of stealing thousands of dollars from his mother and stealing a car from him. According to a friend of Mari, the two were talking on the phone as she drove from Roberto's mother's house in Hialeah to Roberto's home in Boynton Beach to return his car and the other items he claimed she had stolen. The last thing her friend heard from her was Mari saying, "No, no, no, Roberto," before ending the call. Her friend believed she'd been attacked and immediately called her back, but her phone went straight to voicemail. The same day, a bloody purse that appeared to belong to Mari was found a mile from Roberto's house, and a few days later, police questioned him about her disappearance. Roberto claimed Mari had been to his house, she had bumped into a wall while there, but he had left to go to a doctor's appointment. She was gone when he got home. While at his home, police noticed blood on the front door of his home and more blood in his garage. Roberto claimed his dog had been injured months earlier and must have shaken his blood onto the wall. The blood turned out to be human blood, however, and police came back with a search warrant to search his backyard. They found Mari's remains in his yard last Friday, and Roberto is being held without bond for first-degree murder. We're going to take a deeper dive into Mari's disappearance and death today on our podcast, and you can also check out the links to our sources below, which were Oxygen, Sun Sentinel, Daily Beast, and People.
This week, we're watching Behind Her Eyes on Netflix. Behind Her Eyes is a British thriller miniseries that you do not want to miss. The show features a single mom who works as a secretary at a mental health clinic in London. She finds herself in a love triangle with a psychologist and his wife, who seems to have a dark past. The show starts off as a slow burn, but do not give up on it because the unexpected twists are absolutely worth it. If your thing is love triangles, British accents, and a good twist, then this is the perfect show for you. If you're watching this weekend, let us know what you think of the show in the comments.
We are so excited to have Simone with us from this week's favorite podcast, Love Triangle Murders. On her show, you'll hear stories about love gone very wrong and find out what happens when a jilted lover or spouse will do whatever it takes to get their love back, even if it means murder. Simone, welcome back to the show. And we're so excited to have you as our first guest that we've actually had twice. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you? This is exciting to be back again.
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be hanging out with you again. We had so much fun the last time, so I'm so glad you're back.
Thanks.
Well, for those of you who are just meeting Simone, which I don't know how many of you that's true for, since you were actually just featured in Cosmo magazine, which is amazing.
Thanks.
But Simone is the host of the popular podcast 90s Crime Time also, which covers crimes from the 90s. So now you have your new show, which focuses specifically on love triangles. And what inspired you to start the second podcast? And how is it different from 90s Crime Time?
Well, I always loved the stories of like love triangles, love gone wrong, scandalous stories. I don't know, maybe because I like the mess. I like the just betrayal. Like betrayal is obviously not good, but it just, I like to see what happens when that one person like betrays the wrong person. What happens when, you can't have what you want or who you want, and see what it goes to, the backstories and all that stuff.
Absolutely. And there's so many great examples of that, because I really think that, like, what are probably the two biggest thing people kill over? It's either love or money.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that these stories are more interesting because you're right, they get so messy.
Mm-hmm. They do. And that's why I wanted to, because it's a little different, obviously, from 90s Crime Time, because 90s Crime Time focuses on the 90s, the decade. of, 30 plus years ago or a little under 30 years, but love triangle murders have been happening since the beginning of time. And, that's why I was like, I want to cover something like this.
Right. That's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And so you already talked a little bit about what it is about love triangles that really hooks you. But do you have a specific love triangle case that started your fascination or sort of exhibits all of those things that are interesting to you?
Yes, well, there's actually two, but the biggest one was in Colorado. There was a woman by the name of Shauna Nelson. She was sleeping with a married police officer, and there was a pregnancy involved. There was a termination involved, and the wife confronted the mistress, and the wife ended up getting murdered by the woman who was wearing a scream mask in front of her job and in front of her coworkers. Her coworkers knew who that was without the mask, because she's been having problems with that lady forever. And that freaked me out because she wore a scream mask to
Like
kill this
the
lady.
ghost face kind of thing?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God, that's so
yeah.
scary.
With the whole costume, and she was called out because she had it still in her car, which I was like, that's kind of dumb, but you know,
Right.
it's all because some man wanted to break off the affair and she could not handle it.
Wow, that is really taking it too far. And like for me, one of the scariest things I can imagine from watching horror movies and such is somebody in a mask.
Yeah,
Like this sort of like unknown identity and not being able to look them in their eyes. Like it's just so
yeah,
creepy. Like, can you even
yeah,
imagine somebody showing up to your work in a scream mask? Oh,
yeah. And they were closing, so it was dark. It was nighttime, and they were leaving work. And she came up and she said, "I want you." And she made her get on the ground, and then she pretty much shot her execution style. And
oh,
the wife didn't even know who she was at first, because apparently the mistress would come around and follow her. Like she'd be in a store and she'd be like, "Oh, you're ugly, you're fat," and the woman's like, "Well, who are you?" And over time, she figured out who she was, and she gave her husband an ultimatum, and he chose his wife, and that's what happened.
wow. How sad, how terrible for everybody involved.
Yeah,
Like, oh, like that's
yeah,
terrible. Is that a
yes.
case that you covered so far? Is that one you're going to cover?
No, that's gonna be pretty soon.
Awesome. I will tune in for that one because wow, that sounds really fascinating. But
Mhm.
so you just launched your show and you launched it on Valentine's Day, which I thought was pretty perfect timing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
Very
yeah.
smart. But you've already covered some great cases in the few that you've done in the past month. I really enjoyed the episode you had on Dr. Clara Harris. Um, it's such a fascinating story, but she basically cheated or killed her cheating husband in her Mercedes. And I had
Mhm.
heard that story before, like maybe as it happened through the news, but you did such a great job of retelling that. It was just so riveting. So, could you tell us about
Yeah.
any more upcoming cases that are going to be on your show that we should be on the lookout for? Any you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, yes. There was one. I grew up in Nashville, and there was a football star who was murdered here, NFL player who was murdered here. He was retired, but he had a mistress, and the mistress got mad about it at something, and it all ended in someone's demise, or two people's demises. And well, I don't know how to say that, demise, whatever. But two people, two people ended up dead, and it shook Nashville to like, it was so shocking. Like Nashville's had murders obviously, but this was an NFL star, and he was very popular. He just opened up a restaurant, and a few
Wow.
weeks later he's dead from, yeah, from a
Wow.
jilted lover, and allegedly a jilted lover, because like I said, it's some stuff going on in that episode that I'm really excited to talk about. Obviously I was here for that, and so I cannot wait to tell that story. And another one that's not local, but another one that made a lot of headlines, is another football player who was cheating on his partner. They weren't married, but cheating. And another two people ended up dead in that one as well. So it's like, this
Wow.
is sports themed. And I cannot wait to talk about these two cases.
Wow. It's so interesting because you must have so many cases to pick from. Because in true crime, there's that popular saying, it's always the husband, but apparently
Yeah,
it's also sometimes the wife and sometimes the lover.
Mhm.
Watch
Oh, yeah.
out.
Yes, and some people don't realize that men can be jilted too. So,
Right, right.
I'm ready for that.
Yeah. Well,
Ready
so
for
great. Simone, it's been such a pleasure having you today. Can you let
Thank
our
you.
viewers know where they can find you on social media? And include for that, of course, Love Triangle Murders, but also 90s Crime Time, because y'all need to follow Simone there because she
Thank you.
does wonderful 90s crime coverage too.
Thank you. Right now, Love Triangle Murders just has an Instagram page, but I do plan on it being on other social media platforms and getting its own website.
Awesome.
90s Crime Time has a website, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also find me on any podcast platform you listen to for both shows. So I look forward to you guys listening.
Awesome. And be sure to subscribe to Love Triangle Murders and also 90s Crime Time, wherever you listen to podcasts, so you don't miss a single episode. And also be sure to check out Cosmopolitan and Newsweek for the mention that they gave Simone, I think just a week ago. Is that right?
Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
Awesome. So be sure to check that out too. Thank you so much for joining us, Simone.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into This Week in True Crime with Murder News. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below, give us a thumbs up, and tell all of your true crime friends.
Help support Murder News by visiting our Patreon at patreon.com/Murder News. We have some great benefits like merch, a shout out on our YouTube and podcast, exclusive episodes, and early access to tickets for our live online events. Your support helps us feed the MMN goats, add to our community wig wall, and help support our amazing writers that keep you up to date with the latest breaking news every day on murder.news. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. See you next week.